Hey, everybody. Lieutenant Joe here for the Blue Heart Podcast. Today, we're going to talk to somebody from corrections. Now, anybody who's read my writing knows that I see corrections officers as law enforcement officers. There's a big controversy in the world out there, and I don't know why it is. Corrections officers work the toughest precincts of the entire country. As a street cop, when I went and hit the road, I may come across the bad guy that day. It could be a problem. But the men and women who serve in corrections, they come across bad people every single day. They don't get away from it. So today I have with me JAvier Baldaramos. I think I said that correct, JAvier. JAvier is a corrections officer, and he's from the McConnell Unit prison in Beeville, Texas. So today I figured I would bring on JAvier. We kind of connected to each other, and we have a lot of the similar interests in law enforcement, and there's a lot for us to talk about. So JAvier, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Sure. So some of the things, when you go to do one of these podcasts for you, we're trying to figure out what are we going to talk about. Well, the world of law enforcement is huge. We could talk for hours about anything. So one of the things I think JAvier brought up is the shortage that we're seeing across the entire spectrum of law enforcement, corrections, police officers, sheriffs, everything. I think everybody is really suffering from the same kind of shortages. And I can only imagine in a prison system being short on officers, the burnout must be crazy. So what's the shortage like on your end, JAvier?
Oh, it's incredible on the max units. It's incredibly short every day. It's all the time, every day. It's 12, 15, sometimes even more hours. Here in Texas, when I work for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, we have really good staff. There's like 99% of everybody that works here, that works for TDCJ, are good people. It's just that 1% that is somewhat bad.
Right.
But the shortage is a big issue. Like we work 4 days on, 4 days off at the unit I work at.
Right.
So basically we work 6 months, but we also have to do a lot of overtime.
Sure.
But no matter what division of law enforcement we're in, there's tons of overtime everywhere we go.
So when you're saying shortage, like how many officers are on a given shift, and what are you short? You know what I mean?
I would say right now, the unit I'm on, we're probably about 60% staffed.
Wow. So everybody fills in the gaps with overtime.
Yes, sir. And then we bring people from other units from that are fully staffed. They bust them in, they bring them in. But basically, the units we work at are about 60% staffed. And we make do with what we have, as well as the additional.
What comes to my mind is the burnout, because like I was saying, if I'm in a patrol car, I'm a detective, and I roll around, I might have a day where there's not a lot goes on, but you are every single day with inmates who are in there for serious crimes in a maximum security facility. What is the stress level like of having to do your shift and then do overtime? How does that express itself in the men and women that are there? Is it dangerous because people are tired? Is it not a big deal? How do you see it?
I mean, like, I can tell you that we do get tired. We actually mentally get tired more than like physically get tired, because we get used to working the long hours. Believe it or not, we do have kind of like a family structure amongst each other, just because the amount of time that we spend with each other. We get a bond. We enjoy working together. I could personally say that.
Mm-hmm.
But even with the offenders,
law enforcement, out in the streets the same way. Your brothers and sisters, and you watch each other's back, and that's one of the great things about a career in law enforcement, no matter wherever you serve.
Yeah, I can even say this, like sometimes it becomes a pain, because like when you get off duty and you want to hang out, all you do is your people. So then I can tell you right now that I don't live where I work, and it's kind of a benefit to me, because if I lived where I worked, I would have my friends would be my coworkers, and within like 5 or 10 minutes, we're already talking about work, which kind of beats the purpose of having friends.
Right. I have to agree with you. It's pretty interesting. Well, when I first took the job, we were trying to decide. Right now, I live 20 minutes away from where I worked. And my wife and I were trying to decide, do we go move into town so I could be right there and go right to work, like a lot of people do. And while we were thinking this over, I had already started working. and there was a Sears back in the day. Everybody remembers Sears, right? In our mall,
Oh yeah.
shopping mall. And I took my wife and my little 5-year-old, and we went into the mall, and we're walking around, and they had a place. Discover Card had a section where you could go and you could go get cash advance and that kind of stuff. And I'm walking with my wife and my son, and there was a perpetrator, shall we say, that I had arrested. Who was a very, very bad person. And he sees me and he goes, "Hey, officer, is that your wife and kid? That's nice to see them." And I was like, I can't imagine working in the town and having people that I lock up all over the place. So we decided not to do it. So I
Well, I
ended up
actually have
living
two
20 minutes
stories for
away.
you on that
Go
one.
ahead. Go ahead.
I actually have two stories for you on that one. Like right now, today, I don't know if you know what Twin Peaks is.
Yes.
The restaurant bar.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I regularly go to there. The dishwasher did 5 years with me. The dishwasher. So the entire state of Texas, they let this guy go. And he's not a bad guy. Like he was never, people have the days that they regret, which leads to them being locked up. Which it's your responsibility to enforce the law, arrest them, and they go through the process. It's our what is the word I'm looking for? Responsibility to keep them there, to ensure and bring them back to society the way they came in. We have like multiple things that we need to do for the offenders in order to keep them straightened out. But let me the story I have for you is right now at Twin Peaks where I go to. He's our dishwasher. So every time I see him, he always has a smile. Like I always get a grin because we always remember what goes on over there. And then I don't know if you know what Johnny Carino's is.
That I don't know.
Johnny Carino, it's another restaurant. You know where the Riverwalk is in San Antonio, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, there's a Johnny Carino's on the Riverwalk. And I remember when I was living in San Antonio, we would go eat at Johnny Carino's. One of their cooks was an inmate that happened to be working there. Every time that me and my ex-girlfriend would go eat there, he would bring us the food and he would like, "Hey boss, I made it extra special for you.
Oh boy.
I hope you like it."
Oh boy. You know, that's here on the East Coast, what we call that is, when you go to eat, you don't want to get a McSpitty. You don't want to see somebody that you locked up, deciding to, do something to your food. So there's
No, yeah, you can think that, but a lot of those people, they have their bad day, like that one day that they regret for the rest of their life.
Sure.
They have to live with it.
I believe in people getting a second chance and rehabilitating if they really want to go straight. But there were places in town we knew that we could go eat, and there's places we knew that we couldn't. And it was funny. I did a case one time. It was a homicide case, and I ended up in New York City to go up, and I had to go talk to somebody up there. And we were leaving the precinct house, and I said to the detective that was up there, I said, "Hey, listen, we didn't eat lunch. Where's a good place to go?" And he's like, "Oh, go over here to Tamanio's. Good place. No spitting in the food. They love the cops, So that it's a kind of a universal kind of a thing. But one of the things we were talking about, with the shortage, I do the training. We do in-person training at police academies and police departments, and then we also do remote training. And I talk to officers from across the country. And this is a problem. People are retiring early to get out of the job because it's tough. They can't get cops to join. I just saw one the other day. I think the starting pay was $75,000 with a $10,000 signing bonus if you wanted to be a cop in this town. And I'm saying that's astronomical numbers for somebody just starting out. But it kind of points to the fact that the job, while it's a calling, it's one of those kind of things. It calls people to it to do the right thing, to protect and serve their community. But you also see a lot of times with the stress we're under now, doing your job can get you indicted and lose your job, lose your pension, or send you to jail for doing your job. Now, I'm not talking about the cops that are out there that do the wrong thing, because we know there's cops that do the wrong thing. We have to identify them and get them out of our profession. But just doing the right thing, police work, any kind of law enforcement work has a tendency to sometimes go sideways. You start out to do one thing, and because of the actions usually of the perpetrator, it goes sideways. They don't want to be arrested. They don't want to submit to the arrest. They want to escape. They don't want to be held accountable. And next thing you know, there's a problem. And then you're getting indicted because you did what you had to do to protect yourself. And I can see that as a problem for a lot of these cops getting out early, taking off, and young people coming on saying, why do I want to do that? I know a lot of cops that I know telling their kids, don't be a cop, go do something else,
But you know what? There is a sense of shame to be part of law enforcement right now because of society and the way social media is. And it shouldn't be like that. I remember when we were growing up. I'm not going to ask you about your age, but I remember when I was growing up, we wanted to be police officers. Like, we wanted to be astronauts. We wanted to be rock stars. We wanted to be these things. These are just one of the things that you wanted to dress up and be for Halloween because that's something you aspired to be. You aspired to be more. And it's not like that anymore. Now there's a sense of shame that before you wanting to be part of law enforcement, if you wanting to protect the people that can't protect themselves.
Yeah, it's difficult. If you watch any of these videos on social media, and I was talking about this the other day. There was a time when if you said to somebody, get out of the car, they got out of the car. If they didn't get out of the car, you pulled them out of the car and you arrested them for interfering with the investigation, right? In most states, the officer can tell anybody, a driver, to get out of the car for any reason or no reason, right? I want you out of the car. Feel safer. Get out. You can't say, no, I don't want to come out. Or you'd go to arrest somebody and they decide they don't want to be arrested and they would pull away. They would fight with you. And you didn't go 97 times in a row like we're seeing on these videos. If I have to tell you one more time, I'm going to arrest you. If I have to tell you one more time, you told them one time and you arrested them. It's a different world. So society has told people that law enforcement are bad. And I think you're right. That is part of the, why do I want to get involved in that? Want to be a cop in Minnesota? Want to go there now? The way things are. So I think that's a serious problem. Now, what I want to tell the Blue Heart Podcast Network out there is that JAvier is also recording us for his podcast. And JAvier, what's your podcast and how can people listen to it?
It's called Planet Texas Podcast, and you can find me on YouTube, Anchor, and a few others. But mainly you can find me on YouTube. That's mainly where the actual bread and butter is going to be.
Excellent. So it's a Planet Texas. That's
Planet Texas Podcast. You would have to look it up.
Podcast. I like that. All right. So I will put that in the notes for the show so that everybody can go find it.
Yeah, like I just recently did an episode with an EMS professional, and he also has a webinar to be an EMS professional. And then I did with an author, and he has a book that's The Memories of Iraq is for the short story.
Mm-hmm.
But he has a book out, and if you want to get it, there's actually links on my YouTube channel for you to get a copy of it.
Outstanding. So right now I'm going to tell you, you can see I got a couple things up here. We have a couple of sponsors that sponsor us here, right? We have the Blue Heart Podcast is sponsored by Blue 360 Media. They are a law enforcement publisher, legal and law enforcement, and they publish everything that anybody could need in corrections, law enforcement, field, out in the street, whatever, including, and since I'm on your podcast, my 2 books.
Okay, well, good. Send me the links and I can put them on there.
Here we have The Investigation. This is a brand new way of teaching. Basically, what I did is I took the case of a brutal double homicide. I tell the story like a novel, but I keep stopping it. And I go, now you're the investigator. Let's go back. And how would you track this person? What would you look for evidence? How would you interview them? All that kind of stuff. And my first book, also from Blue 360 Media, is The Interview. This is a soup to nuts gig on how to conduct a professional law enforcement interview so you can obtain confessions and admissions. All right, so they're both available from Blue 360 Media or on Amazon. And our other sponsor here in New Jersey, we got a really unique thing, the Medical Essential Diagnostics.com group. What they do is they have 5 centers throughout New Jersey, and anybody who works for the state of New Jersey in any capacity, state, county, local, township, whatever, can go to them and get a complete medical physical from soup to nuts, all in about 3-4 hours. And you can bring 2 adults with you from your family, and it costs you nothing. You put down whatever insurance you have. If the test costs more than what your insurance covers, Medical Essential Diagnostics has benefactors who pay the difference. So it's aimed at law enforcement, first responders, but it's for anybody in New Jersey, and they sponsor the show too. So I think that's an excellent thing to know. So I'm going to go check out your podcast. I'm going to like it and follow it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. So one of the things that you and I had also discussed was the PTSD about working in law enforcement, working in corrections, and how that can happen. And when I started writing, I had this bug to write. I wanted to write my experiences. I thought that would be something that would be interesting in another part of my life. And the first article I wrote is called "The Tragic Toll of Police Work." It was published by the FBI magazine. I sent it in cold. I said, "Hey, I wrote this article," and I sent it in, and they published it. And I was shocked because it bounced around the world. I got emails from people that, their mother, their father, their brother, their sister was a cop and killed themselves. And that was really the tragic toll of police work, of working in this law enforcement world, is that people let things build up and they end up taking their own lives. We know that that's, one of the number one sources of death on the job in law enforcement is suicide, either when you're active or after you're retired. So it's an important topic for all of us.
Well, it is very important. Like one of the issues that law enforcement has, as well as we in corrections, is that we all want to be tough guys. We all want to be tough guys. Like for the state, we have a thing called CRISP. It's for crisis management in case something were to happen. We have CRISP officers as well as non-officers that are CRISP to come and have talks with us and kind of walk us through. But we need more than that, to be honest with you, to deal with the everyday situations. Because there's plenty of days where we come to work and somebody is trying to commit suicide, somebody is trying to hurt themselves, somebody's trying to hurt us, and it's every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And we almost become numb to the sense of like we're out in general population, when we're actually out in the world, there's actually like a sense of we see stuff and it doesn't affect us the way it should affect us.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that. The whole idea, one of the things that what really caught me off guard was I knew a couple of officers and they killed themselves. And I knew these people, and I never thought they would be a person that would kill themselves, because I never consider that. I've never thought about killing myself. And to find out, here's people that I knew and I knew well that ended up taking their own lives. I was shocked by it. And that's when I started doing some research, and I found out, there's usually two professions that lead the way for suicide, dentists and law enforcement. Why dentists? I don't know, but dentists and law enforcement are always 1 and 2. And when you see the stress, and you're right, we see the world, what I call is a backstage pass to life we get in law enforcement. We see things no one else sees. And a lot of the ways officers deal with it, because they're tough guys and tough girls, is as though it doesn't bother me. That doesn't bother me to see this little child raped and murdered and dumped in a shallow grave. That doesn't bother me. It's just one thing. Oh, a guy hung himself in front of the Christmas tree having financial problems. That doesn't bother me. Those things do bother you. And they curl
Well, it
up
should bother us,
Yeah.
but the fact that we see it so often, it's just like it's hard to take in. Like I always refer back to about November, I lost my father. He died of an old age. He just, people talk about that they could have did something, and I'm like, well, he's older. It's just, it is what it is. He passed
Mm-hmm.
away. I let my warden know. I let my senior officer know, my shift lieutenant, and then I didn't quite know how to process that. I could personally tell you I didn't know how to quite process that.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what I did? It didn't seep in. And I ended up going to work the next day, and they sent me home like right that morning. And I was very thankful for my lieutenant and my sergeant to see what actually, like, hey, you shouldn't be here. It's time to go home, because it didn't really hit me, because I've seen people. You've seen the body bags. You've seen the state police show up. Everybody, they perform the autopsies and things of that sort. We go through a series of SIR, a serious incident review, and then they review everything, and sometimes you even end up in federal court. I mean, these are steps and procedures that happen throughout, like anywhere, but you see it all the time.
it does, it becomes second nature to you. But you're right, we should feel these things because these are tragic things that we see every day. And I think I had somebody one time tell me that, there's a lot of ghosts that follow me around, a lot of ghosts, and the ghosts bothered them. And I started thinking about it. And I had a long career in law enforcement. And I saw and did lots of things. And I said, yeah, I can sense the ghosts around me from different cases. I can remember the things very clearly, but they don't affect me. And I kept asking myself, why? Why don't they affect you? Because I think I faced them right up with what I just saw was horrible. That was a terrible thing, where I know a lot of us do gallows humor. We make jokes about it to get over it. We don't deal with it. So in my book, the
And
investigation.
also know those are the good ones where we actually just kind of make it funny. There's a lot of stuff that aren't funny, like people who do think about suicide, who fall into drugs, who fall into like alcoholism.
Yeah.
Those are the really, like, how did you get to this point? How do we not see the signs?
Their marriages are ruined, from this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what I put in my book is interesting. A story about this is that this had started to happen. We had a couple of really, really rough cases, and everyone was affected by it, but nobody really wanted to talk about it. So in the case that I investigated, this guy killed his baby mama and his 88-year-old grandmother, cut their head, hands, and feet off, chopped the place up. It was a brutal scene. And it was so bad that afterwards I went to the chief and I said, listen, we had dispatchers involved here, cops, patrol officers, detectives that just saw this really bad horror scene. We should get together with a psychologist or something and let people talk this out. How do they feel about this? And he agreed. And we brought in two psychologists, and we sat in a big room. All the cops that were actually in the scene. And some of the, senior officers were making jokes, and they were laughing and not taking it really serious. And then one old guy, one old cop sitting there goes, I've seen a lot of stuff in my life, but seeing grandma's head with the hearing aid in it, that really kind of freaked me out a little bit. I thought about, I had a dream about it. Well,
Well, it should
that
freak
opened the
out people.
floodgates. And then everybody started saying how it was horrible to see that everything they saw, and it was very positive. So I don't think those ghosts are going to follow anybody around. But that's the key. We have got to deal with these things straight up, so we don't get stressed out and we're not having a problem. Oh, so you hear that sound in the background? Is that Jersey birds? Do they sound like that? No, that's my rescue dog Arthur, who's losing his mind because the deadly, dangerous UPS man might be here. So
Oh, those
hopefully
dangerous
he doesn't
UPS
goof
man.
things up too much.
It's okay.
Well, Javier, listen, I've liked this conversation, and I'd like to get you back on again as we go, because I think this is interesting, and I want everybody to go listen to Texas Planet Texas podcast on YouTube. Go check Javier out, like him, follow him, all those kind of things, and everybody on Texas podcast, Planet Texas podcast, who's listening to me, come and find me. You can find my program on Podbean at jpangaro.podbean.com. That's the audio version. We also have a YouTube channel where we have the video, and that if you go to YouTube and you put at Blue Heart Webcast, you'll pop up, and I have a whole bunch of interviews on there and training, and we talk about training and activity, and all the things to do with law enforcement are on there.
I mean, you have a lot of incredible classes when I was looking at. Like, I think one of the classes that we never get trained on is how to act in court. If we ever go to federal court, I think that's a severely topic. That's something that nobody ever talks about until it's too late.
Yeah, well, that actually started because, as a detective, you go to court a lot. And I started to figure out, my son's an attorney. He's not a defense attorney, but he's an attorney. And at the time I realized a lot of cops are having a hard time on the stand. They don't realize their importance.
Well, yeah, because a lot of
In the
times when they
case.
write a report, it looks like chicken scratch.
Yes. Right. Absolutely. It does. So
it looks like chicken scratch. It looks like a 5-year-old, with the limited English, and I'm sorry, but I'm just,
no, you're absolutely right.
We have that issue too, where it's just kind of,
when you become a supervisor, that's when you realize that somebody hands you a report and you say, were you actually at this call? Did you actually go there? Because I can't tell by your report. But we put together the courtroom testimony class because I saw a need for this. And in a lot of my classes, I will include a 20-minute block at the end on how to deal with the courtroom. And you see it really helps a lot of officers to know what goes on, what's the dynamic in that courtroom, and what's your
Mhm.
part of it. So I appreciate
Like
that.
I have a little story for you here. When I was a sergeant at one of the transfer units, I had a CO literally write down he performed a dragon flying kick on official documentation.
Yes.
Went to federal court.
Is that
And
a
he's all,
specified move? Were you trained on that dragonfly kick? No, I get
I
it.
guess you did the dragonfly kick where whatever the hell it was.
Yeah,
It
that's some
got
crazy stuff.
they said it out loud, and I was cracking up.
Yep, and that can make or break a case. You
Oh
make
yeah.
a line in that courtroom that's not appropriate. But the thing is also the lawyers, some guys and girls get intimidated by the lawyer, by the judge. You have just as much importance in that courtroom as anybody else. So one of our podcasts, I actually did a whole program on some of these things. So you can go look them up. So Javier, listen, I have to draw this to a close right now.
Okay, sir.
But I'll get you back on. We'll come back on with some more topics. I think this is a good conversation.
Yes, sir. We can
You
definitely
can
have
find
that.
my training at jpangaro. No, that's my email. Sorry about that. At pangarotraining.com, pangarotraining.com. Arthur won't be there barking his brains out like he is now. The mailman must be here too. But Javier, I want to thank you. And for everybody out there who is Planet Texas podcast, it was nice to be on. Nice to meet you all. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for letting me
All
on.
right.